Hello, this is an Ibach Baby Grand, 145.5 centimeters long. That's 5'9" long. So it's a very short grand piano. And Ibach specialized in making very short grand pianos in 1930s. This is 1930. This is actually a follow-up video, and we've made a video of before the work we felt needed doing was done. And just a quick look at the piano though. So it's 88 keys. Perfect ivory keys, been fully restored, and really very tasteful piano. It's one of our favourites really. The very small Ibach grand pianos are not nearly as common as Blüthner, which is the other very top quality make of very small pianos. So we're very pleased to get this piano into stock. Now, the other video is quite long, so could refer to that for many details on the piano, but just say that it's now in our workshop showroom area, and our polisher's been going over the case, livening it up basically. There's not really been anything to repair on it, just to improve the polish. I think there was a very small repair on the back edge here, looking at the other video. By the way, it's alongside the Blüthner, which I mentioned. It's a much more common piano, and of the high quality small grand pianos, this is really the one we're trying to get in the most, because the name Blüthner is very well known. Well, we'd like to get more Ibachs, but there just aren't many of them. Not enough Blüthners either. But this one's actually sold. But hopefully we've got others coming in the pipeline if you're interested in a small grand. It's 151 centimeters long, so a slightly longer piano. So it's about 5 foot long. This is 4'9". So the Ibach is very small. I don't think the bass is any the worse for it. Here's the bass end of the Blüthner. And the bass end of the Ibach. So really not a lot to choose between them. They're very short grands, so you won't get a strong bass, but obviously they play the bass in the octaves mainly anyway, so it's not really too much of an issue. I've pitch raised this piano now, and the tuning pins are very tight. I've set the pitch at A442. Like I said, it's slightly high because basically the less you turn the pins, the better, in terms of the more they get turned, the looser they become. So if it's at 442, then it won't need pitch raising for a long time, hopefully, as it goes down to 440, and then we don't like them to go below that really. This, by the way, is quite a large pins, because the rest plank hasn't been changed. We do change rest planks on a lot of pianos, especially the Blüthners actually, when we fully restore them. But very tight pins, so be pleased about that. Now the main issue was that the key weighting and regulation was really needing refining tremendously. The key weighting, if you remember, was, I'll show you what it was. It was 71 grams roughly. So I've shown on the last video that all the weights I've got here, which is 63 grams, plus the 8.75 of the £1 coin. So it's about 71 grams, and it didn't go down at all, as you'll see. And now it goes down very, very easily. So we've managed to reduce the weight, but we really wanted to reduce it by 20 grams. We'll see how much we've managed to reduce, but you can see that in the middle there it's going down very, very well. Let's take the £1 coin out and see what happens. So it's still going down very, very happily. So it's less than 63 grams, that's just as well. So now with 53 grams, it just goes down nicely. Let's put it on the edge there. So 53 grams, and further up in the treble, that's going down nicely. So really would like to get it down to 50 grams. There it is lighter. It's been very difficult to, or the treble should be lighter anyway. As you can see, it is, but it's been very, very difficult to get it really, really consistent. Though I think for a pianist this would be very acceptable. It's a very small piano, so normally small pianos we try to get the weight down as low as possible because they tend to be played more by occasional. At the bass end there, it's slightly heavier, as you should be, tapered towards the bass a bit. So 53 grams there. So we had to reweight the keys, and this is the first one I lifted up on the other video. So these star weights here, this one and that one, were the originals, and we've added 2 there to get the weight correct. So there, again, that's added 2 there, and so on. This one I lifted up 2 in the last videos. I added 1 there, so it's been slightly inconsistent. And on this one here, there were 2 weights, and I was really concerned because that you can't get too near this felt, obviously, and there wasn't a lot of space between, but my colleagues managed to put one here, so there's 2 there, original, and this one here, of course, being further towards the front, has more effect, and that's been enough to reduce the weight, so that's very encouraging. Going down here, some of the other ones we lifted up before, you can see 2 weights I think were in them originally, and now there's 4. You couldn't get much more in there, and as I say, it's been very difficult to reduce the weight, but I think 52, 53 grams is really acceptable. I forgot to mention that before reweighting, we lubricated with dry lubricant the centre. That's commonly reduces the weight if you do that, and just check the felts at the front as well, because they might be a bit tight, and also the hinges here. I think my colleague said that some of these were a bit tight, so now they should all fall down nicely as you drop them. So they're not tight anymore. That reduces the weight as well and makes it even before you put the weights in. Now these hammers here, I would think, see, if we're asking for hammers for a small piano, normally they're going to have to be very light ones, so we'd ask the manufacturer for the lightest ones he's got. Now these could be made lighter by tapering them. That's very commonly done on Bluteners. It's done very, very often. So tapering the hammer, taking a little bit of felt off, taking some of the wood off here, because you don't need all that width of wood, maybe reducing it by about a third, and that would take maybe a couple of grams it would gain on that. So it all helps, and we get it down to 50 if we did that. It's much easier to do without the hammers on, but before the hammers are put on, rather, when they just come out of the packet, than it is now. And I'd say ideally you ask for the lightest hammers possible, then you haven't got to add weights to the keys, or won't have to add very much to even it up. And the other point of lubrication is here, so you want dry lubricant here, which also helps just a little bit, but obviously not hugely. And with all those factors together, we've managed to reduce the weight, and could possibly reduce it a couple of grams further by tapering the hammers. So that's a follow-up video from the last one, where we showed this kind of work we felt needed doing on the piano, and the other video showed you an awful lot, so I won't say much on this one, except that there's still a bit of refinement to do, voicing, bit of damping as well. It's a beautiful even tone throughout. For a very small ground, it's only 4'9", it's one of the smallest you'll get. And Ibach were really very much at the forefront of being the best very small ground makers. Now the weighting was the main problem, and now it's very pleasant to play. Before it was incredibly hard work. It was about 40% how heavier than it should be, and now it's the right weight really. We could possibly bring it down by another couple of grams by tapering the hammers. Thank you very much for listening.